Joining me today is Josh Taylor. He's a real good friend of mine. I've done business with him for a long time. He's into several different things, and I'm really excited about talking with him today. He's also a very good businessman. And to me, everything takes a slow down tone. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like everybody's all of a sudden starts saying, okay, these are the things I want to be done with by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And they start focusing more on them than all of the stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with
And
that.
it helps, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Things, I guess people kind of begin to wrap up projects and aren't starting quite as many new ones and that kind of things.
Do you have a lot of people buy appliances for Christmas presents, or is that?
Yes and no. So, I mean, there are instances, where families will get together and they'll buy their mom a new stove or a dishwasher or something like that. But most of the time, this time of year, it's more about replacement. So, somebody cooking for the holiday and something breaks, they got guests coming for Christmas and that kind of thing, and dishwasher's not working or refrigerator's not making ice, and they're just tired of putting up with it, and so they'll call us to replace, or one of our technicians to come out and do a repair or something like that.
Do you have? Here's one thing I always bought appliances from Gary Randolph for years, and I don't know exactly when I switched over to y'all or why. Did they go out of business or?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I've known you for several years. I grew up in our family business, and I don't remember kind of where the relationship began, to be honest. It really seemed like it's just always kind of been there.
It's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
When y'all went on Durkee Road, was that your second location or your first or what?
Grandparents had actually started. My grandfather was doing some out of his basement there at his house.
What was his name?
Lloyd Taylor. A lot of people knew him as Chief. He actually come from the stove foundries.
Oh.
But anyways, he was working some out of his house, and then they opened up there on Durkee Road. I guess that's been 36 years ago, 37, somewhere right in there.
Golly, it seems to me like 10 years ago.
Time flies.
36 years ago.
Yeah.
Was he doing a lot of business out of his basement? I mean, like overloaded?
I wouldn't necessarily say overloaded, but he just had a vision to do something different. I mean, my grandmother had a beauty shop, and they were renting a building, from somebody else at that time. I don't even really recall who. And it just kind of made sense to build their own building and open up that appliance store, and then she put her beauty shop on the other side of it. And that's kind of how we got that start. My grandfather just had that vision to one day that his family would be able to work in a business if they chose to, just to try to make things better for them. I mean, he was always looking for a way to improve somehow, some way. And so, yeah, he was a true visionary.
So I would have been 22, 23. He might have been in business there before I switched over, or whatever I even switched over.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to go in my business. I can't really stand in line at Lowe's or Home Depot, and a lot of times you'll buy the washing machine, but it doesn't have the pigtail, and it's just so complicated.
Yeah, it is, and we try to make that as simple as possible. We're part of the community, so we try to treat everybody fairly, and we try to remind everybody, of those things that they're going to need. And then, we're customer driven. Customer service is number one to us. We'll make sure my guys know the product so they can explain the difference, to customers when they come in of, the different models and things like that. And then just being able to offer service after the sale. So, in the event you were to have an issue, things are man-made. And, sometimes happen. You have failures. We don't like them any more than anybody else does. But when that happens, it's nice to know that you got somebody that you can call on to come and take care of whatever that issue is. And we worked hard for that.
And you're not really the manufacturer of it. You're
Right, we're
the
not.
dealer of
We're
it.
the dealer. We're the retailer. So yeah, it's not that we're manufacturing it, but we still want to make sure we work with pretty close with all the OEMs. Uh, so in the event you do have even a warranty issue, we're authorized to take care of that. This is no cost to you out of pocket.
Is there? There's not much that goes wrong with washing machines and dryers anymore, except I guess electronics, right?
For the most part, things are pretty durable, pretty low failure rates. Things don't last as long as they used to. Before, grandma and grandpa stuff would last
Yeah.
20, 25 years.
Yeah.
And you don't see that anymore. Average life, according to consumer trends, is probably 7 to 10 years. Is about the average life of all household appliances.
If you bought one that lasted 20 years, it would cost you so much you couldn't afford it.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's everything's driven by price, and as expensive as things are, home appliances are, in relation to what vehicles have done over the last 40 years, or homes have done over the last 40 years. Appliances have stayed pretty inexpensive in comparison, but the trade-off with that is they just don't last as long.
There's a trade-off, isn't there?
Always.
Have you ever heard somebody say, "I had this refrigerator for 30 years and we moved it and it quit working"?
Sometimes that does happen.
Is
Yeah.
it something to do with the compressor or something?
Yeah. Without getting too technical on it, some of those real old ones had a lot of oil in the system, and if you tilted them a certain way or something, you could get that oil on top of the piston and the compressor, and it would cause issues. Now, new ones, they're a lot more forgiving. Even the manufacturers, when they ship them to us, they'll have a row standing up and a row laying down across it, so not as um, not as important as what some of the older ones were.
Do you think that Durkee Road's a good location for you to be able to kind of hit anywhere in Cleveland? It seems like it would be an advantage.
Well, we like to think so. We've been there for a while. It's a little off the beaten path. So if you come to see us, you're coming with a purpose or an intention. But with home appliances, it's that way. It's not one of those things you're just kind of passing by and decide you want one. It's you've got a need, either you're got a new construction or a remodel, or you got something broke. And being right there on Derrickey, it allows us to serve Cleveland City and Bradley County, and even parts of Polk County, and over into McMinn, and kind of like that. So yeah, it is a good central location.
Is it complicated business?
Well, it's what I do every day. So yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's what I've been raised up on. But any business, I don't care what it is. If you're a small business owner, uh, it's complicated. I mean, it's hard. The day and time that we're operating in, it's just different than I guess what it used to be. Things are a lot more competitive. Shoppers and customers are a lot more intelligent when it comes to the product. Internet has brought a lot of that. And so, yeah, it's a pretty complicated task. I mean, you really have to know your stuff, and you have to stay on top of it and follow trends. And stocking product is different. Even the past few years, with the pandemic, which nobody likes to talk about that stuff, but it's still real. I mean, we're still facing fallout from that. Manufacturers change how that they were storing product, where they're mainly everything that's ordered now in place of the manufacturer warehousing it, they're shipping direct to retailers such as us. And so that's changed how that we have to order, how that we have to forecast sales and things like that to project what we're going to do, so we've got product to offer our customers.
It is very complicated now with the supply chain. If you're not involved in it, you have no idea what particular thing is all of a sudden not going to be available. That you can't forecast it.
No.
I mean, I waited on Windows for 28 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have thought 5, 3, and I had one job that I waited on the cabinet hinges for like 4 weeks. And why? We had the house there, the people were moved in that had no cabinet doors.
Yeah.
Who would have thought, order the cabinet hinges early?
Mm-hmm. It's been that way with our business with refrigeration products. We had a customer, probably the worst example of it, but I think she waited a little over 10.5 months to get a refrigerator that shouldn't have taken just a few weeks. And there wasn't really any rhyme or reason to it. It's just the way it is. no way to know that ahead of time. So
And it may be the help. It may be they can't get the aluminum. Who knows? But
exactly, who knows?
used to, if a company couldn't get you a product, they were embarrassed.
Hmm.
And nowadays it's acceptable.
It is. I think it's used as an excuse a lot of times, and be that good or bad. It's just the truth. It's like you were just saying. It's a lot of things have kind of become accepted, and that's still hard for me to kind of swallow. Hard for me to get a good handle on.
I've found that the customer is a little bit different. Have you seen that?
Yeah. What ways do you mean they're different?
Well, they're more informed about different products that,
Mm-hmm.
that may not even be available
Mm-hmm.
or that may not fit.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hardly call and order the cabinets without knowing the appliances they want to use
Mm-hmm.
and having the cut sheets for them to know how wide to leave for the refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
You may need 32 inches and you may need 36 and you may need 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
By the time you get ready for the appliances, you've got 35 inches available and they picked out a 36-inch refrigerator.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the customers are a lot more knowledgeable, and I think they also have a higher expectation of the level of service that they expect, or it seems that way to me. They want us to help account for some of those things, or if we see an issue with something, to kind of let them know ahead of time so that they're not making mistakes and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's just different than what it was in the past.
I noticed this last time I bought a refrigerator from you, it came with the ice maker in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a very odd thing. And I couldn't get the size that I needed that had the ice maker on top.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what a ridiculous place to put an ice maker. And it's been in there now for 2 weeks, and I sort of like it in the middle now. I'm getting used to it.
Yeah,
It's a weird thing.
Some of these engineers and the way they come up with things, I don't know what their thinking is, but some of it turns out to be pretty nice. It's just
I guess
it's
they
different.
figured it out.
Yeah.
There was a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's good or bad, but and I noticed also it had electronics on the door, and I hadn't looked at to see how. Is that important to people anymore? The temperature in the refrigerator and all that stuff.
Well, a lot of people, there's a stigma that kind of comes along with electronics and appliances,
Mhm.
but everything is electronic now, so it doesn't really matter if we like it or not, it's there. But some of the good things about it is it does show you more about like on refrigerators, it shows you more about the temperature regulation. You're actually able to see what temperature that it's operating at and what you have it set at. So there's some definite advantage to it.
But why would you want it colder? To just or warmer?
Well, I mean, everybody's got a little different preference. Some people like their milk, really cold, and they'll operate their refrigerator down 35, 36 degrees. And some people like it a little warmer, and they'll get it on up around 38, 39 degrees. So it's really just a matter of preference.
To me, it's just too many options.
It is a lot of options.
I just rather have the refrigerator.
You just want it to be on and off.
Yeah, the next thing I know, the battery will go out. I got a new bicycle with electronic gears, and I was riding it yesterday, and the battery went out. So now I'm sitting out on the way out in the county, and I'm stuck in a high gear that you just spin. And I thought, this is what you get for having things of convenience.
Goes back to what we were saying there at the beginning. There's a lot of trade-offs.
But now what I did do, I noticed my front ones was working, but my back one wasn't. So I thought, I wonder if you could switch those batteries out. So I got out and switched them. Worked like a charm.
Really?
Yep. So there's workarounds. I guess
Yeah.
if you it's like that ice maker in the middle. You get used to these things, and there's a reason why they change this stuff.
Sure.
It is for the better. You just got to get over that getting used to.
Yeah, we're just creatures. We're all creatures of habit, and change is just it's different, and sometimes just figuring out how to operate around that change or with that change.
Now, you also are a long time preacher, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I've been a pastor at New Beginning Fellowship Church, which is out 64 Highway. This is my 16th year being a pastor out there.
Who was that? Who was it that used to go out there that I knew? Maybe the guy that first started that. I say first started,
Yeah.
but I think they asked me to build that
Really?
way back in the day. Yeah,
That's
I
pretty cool.
think.
There was a Rake Straw that was a preacher out there for a while.
Oh, who was he? Not Toge.
Mm-hmm.
Toge.
Yeah, yeah, he was
He
out
was
there.
one of my best friends in high school.
Is that right? He was out there for a while, and trying to think after that, we had a couple different people that come in as interim. I have attended out there pretty well since the start of the church. Uh, I made music. I play a little bit of rhythm guitar, and I was always pretty content making a little bit of music and kind of being behind the scenes. Never really thought that I'd be a preacher, much less a pastor, but God had different plans, and He called me into the ministry, and here we are, 16 years later. So.
What was the first time you said, "I'll get up and give a talk"?
I get asked that question, and to be honest, I don't remember the exact first time. There've been a few times that somebody was sick, and it's a small church, and somebody was sick. There wouldn't be somebody there to cover a service, and they would ask, and I said, "Well, I will. I'll help. I'll read some scripture, or I'll teach a Sunday school class, or something like that." And I remember sitting there one day, and I don't remember exactly what had taken place in the church, but I remember thinking, this is my people. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way or in a possessive way, but it was like that was when God was really dealing with me and saying, you know what, this is where I want you at, and this is what I want you to be doing. And so I answered the call to preach, and I stepped into that position, pretty young. There was people that had been, serving the Lord and in church longer than I was old at that time. So it was a pretty different transition for me to step into that leadership type role. But God was with me, and He made a way.
Have you studied preaching? Is there a way to study it, or do you just get up and?
There's ways to study the Bible. I've just being led by the Spirit of God for myself. But as far as formal training, I attended Lee University for my undergrad and my master's as well, and so I come out with a minor in Bible. So I've had some Bible study and things like that.
So being in the religious things was nothing new to you.
No, I had my grandparents had a grandmother and her sisters had a gospel singing group, so I traveled all over the southeast with them. I've been around church, the majority of my life.
Mm-hmm. So that was almost a natural transition in a sense.
In a sense, I guess it was. I guess at that time I didn't realize it, but God was preparing me the whole time for what His purpose or His plan was.
Do you study for a lesson?
Yeah, no, I do. I spend a lot of time, or read different. I have different devotionals and things that I read, and a lot of times, in the Scripture, and uh, people always ask, "Well, how do you know what to preach?" And it's like, well, as I'm reading different devotions or reading Scripture for that week, and I'll just kind of get that nudge, I guess you would call it, from the Lord, and saying, this is what I'd like you to share, and so sometimes it's from a discussion or a conversation that I've had with somebody, and uh, that'll spark something, and I'll go and begin to read uh, and then share with that.
You have an outline? You keep like an outline?
No, because what happens when I have notes or an outline is I stick so close to that, and I'll end up getting lost. So I may preach in the mirror a little bit around the house, but truthfully, I just read the scripture. I've got a pretty good idea where I'm going to go with it, and just begin to expound and talk about, and that's pretty well my style.
Wait, how long you preach usually?
I'm not too long winded. Most of the time, I'm 15 to 20 minutes for a sermon.
You give an invitation at the end of the service?
I do. We're a small traditional church, and but yeah, I do. I always like to make the opportunity. The altar is always open anytime you're inside a church. But sometimes people like a formal invitation, and I always find it fitting at the end to provide that invitation, and somebody's got a need, they can come down and
That's
pray.
interesting you use the term formal invitation because the invitation's open all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to the preacher to give it or somebody else to give it or, oh, I missed the invitation.
Mm-hmm. It is, and I always try to encourage people, and I'll say it even sometimes, throughout the service. The altar's always open. If you feel the need or the urge to come, then that's the time to come. But sometimes people like to sit back and wait on somebody to say, "Come now," and so I always like to at least afford that opportunity.
How many members out there?
Typically, we run. Here lately, post pandemic, we've been running probably around 60 people, give or take. Around the holidays, we'll get up a little more, and some Sundays we have a few less. This week there were several that were out sick, so we didn't have quite as many there.
What about
today.
before the pandemic?
Before the pandemic, we were running right at 100 people, and I always say, and I say this with caution, but I say it in sincerity, is church is a habit. There's a lot of habit in that, and a lot of times if we had to close the doors for just a little while. There's a lot of sickness going around, and we felt that was the best thing to do or the safe thing to do for the minute. And when we opened back up, a lot of folks had just found different ways to occupy that time on Sundays. And it was unfortunate, but it's just the truth. It's just the way it is. And I think that happened with a lot of churches. But we're getting back. God's still in control. God doesn't change. People do, and things happen, but God's always the same. And we're getting back to where we were.
Getting out of habit is easy with about anything.
It is.
I mean, you just get out of I call it rhythm.
Yeah, you get out of the rhythm. So you're attending church regular, and you miss a Sunday, and it's like, man, I hate I missed, and then next thing you know, you missed another, and then before you know it, you're just not thinking a whole lot about it. I mean, you've occupied that time with something else.
And then during that time, your kids get on something else, get on another habit that's not as good.
It happens. It does.
It helps to go to church because you have a start and an end of the week. And I think mentally that's a reset.
It's kind of a
Can
reset.
Can you imagine not having any days of the week? It'd be horrible.
I couldn't imagine. I can't imagine not having the opportunity to go to church. I say that not just as a pastor, but just as a believer and as a Christian. It's important. It's part of my foundation, and without that opportunity to come together with other believers and kind of recharge your battery and just kind of let your guard down for a little bit.
And you're around people that care about you.
Yes.
That's worth something.
It is.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. Was your family raised out in that area?
So, yes. I was born and raised right there off of 64 Highway. So where I'm at now, I'm no more than a couple hundred yards from where I was born at.
So, see, my family grew up on Bates Pike.
Really?
In the Taylor's community.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any relation?
No relation. So the Taylor that I'm related to, the Taylors that I'm related to, outside of my immediate family, my dad and my brother and niece and nephew and my own kids and stuff, it would be over in the Carolinas. And a few down in the Florida area, but there's really not many of them left. No relation to any around here.
How did they get to Cleveland, Rick?
I don't really know. My dad and grandparents moved up here from Florida when he was young, elementary age, and they just made home here and just kind of hung out here.
Your family came here from North Carolina by way of Florida, I guess. Maybe.
I don't know. I should know the answer to that, but no, I don't know exactly how all that came about. My grandmother was from McMinn County. My great grandfather had, again, always looking for opportunity and was a hard worker. And so, wherever he felt there was work at, that's kind of where he would go.
That's probably how he ended up at Hardwick. I guess.
My great grandfather was at Hardwick, and then my grandfather Lloyd, he was at Hardwick. I think he started out at Browns and then Hardwick, and then Magic Chef. And the Magic Chef had sold out to Maytag, and he actually retired when it was Maytag. So I can't remember the exact year, probably around 96, 97, somewhere right in there is when he retired.
I guess that was what was going on around here. I guess that's why they came.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Taylor's school?
I did.
That's where my mother went.
Is that right?
That's how long it's been there.
Yeah. It's been there for many years, several generations.
Yeah. Union Grove Church of Christ is where I was raised.
Really?
Yep. Right there on Base Pike.
Yeah. So my great-grandmother attended over at Union Grove Church of Christ.
Is that right? What was her name?
Ruth Thompson.
Oh, God. Boy,
you know
that, do I?
Yeah.
Knew her my whole life.
Is that right?
Yeah, Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
Ruth Pierce.
Ruth Thompson.
But she was Pierce, right?
McCracken.
Ruth Pierce. I know it sounds like I don't know her, but I do know her. Ruth Pierce was T. Jones' daughter, and her daughter, let's see, I can't remember. There's a relation to Alan Jones and Ruth Pierce.
Now, my great grandmother was Ruth McCracken, Arthur and Nell McCracken, and then
James McCracken.
Mm-hmm. That was her brother.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he went to Union Grove.
Mm-hmm. But she married, my great grandfather Cecil Thompson, and but yeah, she attended out there for many years.
You related to the G's, Jackie G?
No, but I know who they are just from out in that community.
Well, Jackie G's mother was well, we ought to do this off air because I can't think of it. But Randolph Samples Road, which is out there on 64 Highway, was named after Ruth Samples Pierce.
Okay. I don't know. I don't think I've met her, but
Ruth was Jackie's grandmother.
It's interesting. I'm sure they probably all knew each other.
They probably all did.
I'm sure. I mean, just from being in that community and going to that church. And
yeah, before you leave, I got a piece of paper in there that shows that. We'll see where you fit on that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because it's really interesting.
It is.
But it used to be called Airport Road, right?
I don't know. That was probably a little before my time,
before
but it was Airport Hill.
Airport Hill,
there.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where they used to. I reckon they used to run those gliders through there.
Really?
Because it was so straight and semi-flat.
I always wondered where that came from. Never knew. But
so now that you're in the appliance business and pastoring on weekend, the pastoring probably doesn't take up much of the week, right? It's just sort of a Sunday thing.
Well, right now we're just having Sunday morning services. But now pastoring is it's full time. If the phone rings, if somebody is wanting prayer, or they've got a loved one or somebody sick that's in the hospital or something like that, then it's just whenever, wherever, that kind of thing.
So it can be things all week.
It can be.
So what possessed you to become? What is it you ran for? I
School
get all
board.
that. County school board.
County school board, yes.
Would you have ever thought you'd been on the county school board?
No, I wouldn't have. A few years ago.
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't see you as a kind of a school board guy.
Well, I probably don't fit the typical politician mold, whatever that is. People ask me, it's like, I don't really know either. A few years ago, I had contemplated it, and when the seat was vacant, became available this past year, then I had some others from the community that asked me if I'd be interested in it, and prayed about it and thought about it and pursued it. And I'm glad that I did. We're vested in the community. Again, I said I've lived out there my entire life. I've got kids in the system. I came through Bradley County Schools. I don't plan on going anywhere. And how the direction of the school system matters to me, and I want to be a part of that.
And that doesn't take a lot of time either, I guess. I mean, I'm not being...
I'm serious. You're right. It's part-time. It's not a full-time thing.
Full-time. it's just being a serving.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? Have you had any meetings yet?
Yeah, we've had a few meetings. Because the seat was vacant there when I ran, then I was actually appointed a little bit earlier.
Oh.
So I've had a few meetings in now.
Who appointed you?
The county commission.
Well, it ought to be it ought to be interesting. Has it been different than you thought it would be?
No, it's pretty well. People ask me all the time. It's like, no, it's pretty well what I signed up for. I mean, you get a few phone calls from parents with concerns or sometimes even praises, and the meetings are they're aired uh, live. When they do the meetings, and but no, everything's been pretty well what I expected it to be.
Is there crowds that come, or just few in the audience?
Just a few in the audience. Sometimes there'll be more than others. It depends on, they do different presentations and things to students and stuff, and then it depends on what's being discussed on the agenda and stuff. So,
How many's on there?
7.
That's 7 people to be over the. How big a budget is it?
It's a little over 80 million.
Golly, 7 people watching over 80 million.
Mm-hmm. It's a large budget.
That's over 7 million. That's over 10 million apiece if you wanted to leave town.
Yeah. I think you probably didn't call it before you got to the line, but yes, it is a big budget.
I mean,
it's a lot of responsibility, and it's not anything to be taken lightly. When I say invested in the community, I really am. I look to serve in different ways, and this was just a good opportunity to serve the community that I love so much.
You think it's about the kids?
Of course.
Your main driving thing.
Of course, if it's not, then there's a problem. I mean, the budget, the administration, every bit of it has to be about the kids. I mean, with any society, if you want to make a change in that society, you do it with your children, and so yeah, it's of the utmost importance.
How many children you got?
I have 3.
3.
Mm-hmm. I've got twin boys that are 15, and my daughter's 14. She's 10 months younger than my boys are.
The twins. What kind of twins were they?
So they are fraternal twins.
What does that mean?
That means that they're not identical. They were, in separate, what they refer to as a separate site. But most people can't tell them apart. If you look at them, they've got some differences, but most people just at first glance can't hardly tell them apart. They're very similar.
Well, I've always wondered about that. If you wanted to study something interesting, it would be twins, wouldn't it? Siamese,
yes.
Or what? Siamese? Is that a?
I've heard that before, but I don't really know what that is. Yeah. But then you got identical twins.
Identical twins. That's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of a cat.
Yeah.
Siamese twins. So, but identical twins, and they're fraternal twins.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they're just both of the things made it to the line at the same time.
Yeah.
And they looked alike.
They do.
It makes you wonder if all of them that made it at the same time would look alike.
Well, I mean, I know other twins that don't hardly even look like each other, and some look very close like mine do. So it's just, I don't know all the science and everything behind it.
When did you know they were going to be twins?
So we found out that we were expecting in March. And so by April, a little before Easter there, we found out we were having twins.
What'd they say? We're not sure, but we think there's 2 in there.
Well, yeah, my wife and I, we had some difficulty when we were trying to start a family. We never knew if we were ever going to have kids. And so when we found out that we were expecting, she was automatically put into a high-risk high-risk care. And so they were monitoring her a little different anyways. And so I remember that day, though, we went in for, just a regular appointment. And the doctor, he was doing an ultrasound, and he spun the monitor around as we were sitting there. And of course, my first thought, something's wrong. There's a problem. And he assured me, he said, there's not a problem. I just want to make sure of something before I tell you. And then he spun the monitor back around, and he said, so here's the baby, and here's the heartbeat, and he circled it on the screen, and then he said, and here's baby B, and here's the heartbeat. And yeah, that's kind of the reaction I had. Wow. And
What'd you name them?
They're Benjamin, and Elijah. So we call them Ben and Eli.
You didn't name them like two names that sounded similar, right?
No, we didn't. And a lot of people do, and that's fine. But we decided to go with two different names.
Do they have totally different personalities, or is the personalities the same? Or
no, they're individuals, so they got different personalities and different likes and interests, and then a special bond between them with twins, and so it is unique. It's one of those fun things to see.
But they look alike. You can tell the difference real easy, obviously, right?
Yeah, I can. But,
if I was to look at them, would I get confused?
You get them confused. A lot of their teachers will kind of get them confused. And
they in the same classes?
Yeah, they are. So all three of my kids, my daughter included, are freshmen in high school. So my boys have late September birthdays. My daughter's early August.
Golly, so you got three in the same grade?
So the way all that falls, yes.
No wonder you're on the school board.
Yeah. And they have, this year they have one class together.
Well, I'd tell you, I'd cheat if I could. If I was in the class, I'd say, you do this week, I'll do next week.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd get along well enough to do that for each other. It's pretty well
one thing
every
about
man
it,
for
there's
themselves.
Probably not anybody going to bother the girl with the two brothers in there, right?
No, they're the boys are good sized young men, and they certainly look out for the sister.
Boy, having kids is different, isn't it?
It is.
It's just altogether different.
It is. It changes a lot of things. It does.
I've often wondered, how do they decide what the lunches are in schools? I mean, do they have like one group that subs it out as a county company, or?
No, I mean, there's certain, and I don't want to speak too far out of turn because I'm not an expert in that, but Emily Brown is who handles that for Bradley County. She does a great job with it, and I know that there's certain requirements and things that they have to meet as far as, nutritional values and stuff like that, and they've got to operate within a budget, but she does a great job. I mean, the county as a whole, their lunch programs is really good. I mean, they again, she just does a good job with overseeing that, and there's some cafeteria workers and things. And they do a good job.
Lunches are very important for school.
They are. I mean, it's hard to teach a hungry kid.
And they don't need to be hungry, and they don't need to be whatever. What about the lunch programs? Somebody handles that, the free lunch programs and stuff?
Yeah, so that's been tricky this past year because a lot of that is federal funded monies, and so they quit doing that at a lot of the county schools, and it wasn't the county that did that or made that decision. That was federal money that was there and then was taken away. So
they took away the free lunch program?
Yeah, well, the free lunch program's there. So for a few years, it was for everybody. Anybody qualified for it. If you attended a county school, then you had a free lunch. And then that federal money went away, and so there's still families that qualify for that based on the income, coming into the household. But not every family does.
So when I went to school, you had to qualify, and then later on, they got it to where everybody got the free lunch, and now they've gone back to just people that qualify.
To qualify, yes.
I don't know if that's good or not, do you?
It's tough. When it comes to federal money, as you well know, there's always strings attached with it, so you got to be careful with it. But I liked it when there was free lunch for all students, because I think regardless of your household income, everybody deserves
the same.
Close.
That's what I would think.
And so I certainly didn't have a problem with that. And again, I don't understand all the ins and outs of where that money went and why that it was taken away. But I know it wasn't a county decision. It was a decision from the federal kind of trickled down.
Because a lot of the school stuff is federal.
Some of it is. I mean, there's state funding and federal funding, but that lunch part of it also is federal monies.
The general public wouldn't know what's a decision on a federal level and a decision on a county level.
No, there's pretty steep learning curve with all those things, and Seeing where that money comes from is different. You can find out, come to some meetings and stuff like that. But generally speaking, you don't have a good understanding of it, or I didn't going into it.
Now, does every district have two board members?
No, it's
one?
a little different. So with the county commission, there's two representatives for every district. With the school board, there's one representative for the 7 districts.
So what would you do? I guess the idea is you're there to represent the needs of your district and try to mesh them with the whole.
I couldn't have put it in better words myself. Yeah. So, I represent the 4th district of Bradley County. And, then there's somebody for the other 7 or the other 6, 7 total. But, the decisions that I make, even as a 4th district representative, affect the entire county school system, and vice versa with the other representatives there as well. The idea of it is, if somebody within my district has an issue or concern, then I'm their liaison. I'm who they can come and talk to. And, I've been working hard and hope to continue to do that, where there's some open lines of communication. If somebody's got a concern or something, or a praise, you see somebody doing good or something good happening at your child's school, then let me know about it so we can recognize it.
Let me ask you this: does your district go all the way out to the Polk County line, or does it stop?
Part of it's right there at the Old Fort and Polk County on 64. So basically, if you're zoned for Oak Grove, Taylor Elementary, Parkview, or Michigan Avenue,
Parkview?
Parkview's right there on Menace Road, right across from Randolph Samples. Jackie Evans Trucking, just down from it.
But that's not a school.
Parkview Elementary.
Oh, where have I missed that? Oh, over there on Doug Elrod's property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you kind of cross 64. I always think of everybody on that side of the road as on the north end for some reason, don't you?
But that still stays right there in the 4th district.
Yeah. You remember Doug Elrod?
I do.
You missed a good one. He was a good guy.
Never had the pleasure of getting to know him.
He was a good guy. So if you go all the way out to Old Fort, that'd be as far as Davis Kerbo Road. Is that it, Bradley? That's right on the line, right?
Yeah, it's down like Bates Pike.
The last place before you get to Ladd Spring to.
See, that kind of changes over right in there and goes into some of the 5th or even the 6th district. Is where those lines kind of come together at, and that may fall over more into that.
It may come around somehow.
Yeah.
Well, that gets complicated. All these meandering lines. How do you keep all that straight?
It is. For the school board, we have it pretty easy because it's where you zone for school at, and that's I'm your representative, or that's your representative over there. But again, we're also representative of the entire Bradley County. So decisions that we make and the things that we do and actions we take is for the entire county. It's not just for our district.
So the lines are not necessarily as important to you as you would. You try not to let that be an issue where the lines are.
Yes, correct.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call. So, some would say, well, you're on the school board, you're a pastor, and you're an appliance salesman. You're running the store, not just you're running the store.
Mm-hmm.
Is it easier to stay on all of that stuff? Do you find yourself that momentum helps you stay?
Yeah, so I'm the type of person that, and I guess that's a good way to put it, is that momentum kind of helps to drive me and keep me moving. But it also kind of puts me in tune. I mean, as having a business in the county, particularly in the 4th district, church out there, I've got kids that are in the school system. So it's not I guess the lines kind of blur in the sense that I just kind of get a good feel of what's going on, and seeing a good opportunity for me to serve the county in that way.
Well, being in the appliance business, it gives you a sense of what it takes to to please people, being a salesman.
It does, and then it's knowing and understanding the importance of just being business minded. When it comes to budgeting, and it comes to forecasting, and it comes to planning, and all of these things. My dad's still very active in the business, but him and I have to sit down on a regular basis to go through these things, and it just gives a different perspective.
Yeah, because let's face it, when it comes down to it, the budget pretty well trumps everything. If the church didn't have a budget, they couldn't hardly operate.
Mm-hmm.
Same with your business, and same with the school board.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I mentioned earlier, I know you as a businessman, because that's how I know you, not necessarily as a preacher, but a guy that handles business.
Mm-hmm.
A businessman is not necessarily a guy that runs a cash register. To me, a businessman is a guy that handles the business,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that business is. And with that, it's the business of school board, and it's the business of church, etc.
It is. It is. And, being a Christian, I mean, how do you separate that? That's part of who that I am. I mean, that's not a separation. I don't take one hat off and put another one on. So, when I don't know, I guess I kind of at a loss for words with that, but you're right. I mean, you got the business of church, you got the business of kids, you have the business of business. I mean, but it all boils down to just having that perspective on things.
Do you think that no matter which of these things you're involved in, the Christian's the main hat?
Yeah, I mean that's the fiber of my makeup of who that I am. So I mean how I couldn't or wouldn't remove that part from it. So yeah, it definitely centers me, and it's part of my foundation.
I wonder who gave you that, the realization of God and everything.
Well, I mean, I grew up around church. My grandparents played a role in that. My parents have played a role in that.
Did they
but,
all go to church regular?
Not always. I was probably 14 years old, give or take, when my parents got really involved in church. Up until that point, that we would go around holidays and things like that, but that was about it. Grandparents, my entire life have been involved in church. My grandmother, particularly, I made reference to her and her sisters have, traveled the Southeast and gospel singing and things like that. But ultimately, it comes down to that personal relationship, with the Lord. And so, they were definitely driving factors and showing me the way. But then, at some point in time, then I had to make that decision on my own, and that I wanted that relationship with Christ.
So it wasn't them that's made you do that. That's really your own desire.
It was my own desire, my own decision, and they showed the way. I don't want to take credit away from them at all, but just so that folks, just in general, have an understanding that it's a personal relationship. No matter how close that your grandmother is, or grandfather, or your
Right.
mother to the Lord, it takes that personal relationship. And I'm glad I made that decision. And I'm glad that the Lord chose to love me.
Have you noticed that when you go to church, you'll be sitting there one day and you see somebody's kid sitting over there, and then a year or so later, you look over and that kid is sitting there with their kid, and you're thinking,
Where did the time
golly,
go?
what happened?
Yeah.
That kid was just, now he's got a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine somebody in their 80s that went to the same church for the entire for 80 years?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine the generations that they've seen?
No, I couldn't.
I mean,
it's,
and me, and I'm not even old, and
Yeah.
I still think, man, that guy's leading the singing now. And I remember when his dad was, in the nursery.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to wrap my head around that.
It is, but it's great to see that. I mean,
It has to be something that it's like if you're raised in the church, it's part of you. But if you later start going, it's something you've joined. But it's
hmm
not like with you. It's just in you.
hmm It is. I mean, like I said, that's just part of who that I am. So yeah, that moral compass, if you will. I mean, that kind of helps to drive, my decisions and where that I am and what that I do, and because that's my view, my worldview. So it's a Christian worldview or Christian point of view.
If you had to do anything else in the world, you couldn't be a preacher, you couldn't be an appliance salesman, you couldn't be on the school board. What would you do?
Oh wow, I don't know.
I mean, what would you think would be an interesting career?
I don't know. I adjunct a little at Lee University.
What does
Just
that
to
mean?
adjunct just means I'm part time, so I just teach one or two classes. But I enjoy that. So I guess if I wasn't doing some of those other things, then I would want to maybe teach at some level.
Teach what?
I enjoy teaching business from a Christian standpoint or from a Christian
Mm.
perspective because I think it is important uh, to to be able again to just the ethical background and the what I referred to earlier as a moral compass and bringing that into business. Sometimes businessmen get a stigmatism of being ruthless or
Mhm.
heartless or different things, but it's not like that. And I think that we can be Christians and be successful business people. And so I enjoy teaching some of those type of principles and
You mean
those
like
things.
almost I don't want to say ethics, but religious business principles, if that's a
Yeah, just
word.
helping to incorporate those.
Because they don't teach that, in anything I know. It's just business is business.
Business is business, and but again, you're as a Christian, and I think it's important to not leave your Christianity at the door when you go into your job. Is to bring that with you, and it's okay to do that.
Has gas hurt y'all?
Yeah, it hurts everybody.
Is it significant?
Yeah,
Is it like it's costing you $100 more a month or 1,000?
yeah. No, our fuel bill doubled.
Where you buy your gas at?
We get a lot of hours from Calfee's, and we use fuel cards and things like that because it's close to where that we are. But yeah, our fuel bill doubled, and along with other businesses,
Yeah.
that face the same thing. So yeah, it's something that we definitely pay attention to and are concerned with, and inflation, just like everybody else. Just like you do at your home, businesses have to do the same thing, and
Mhm.
so we're looking at routing our deliveries, routing our service techs, and making sure that they're covering different zones at the same time, so they're not having to double back. And yeah, it's tricky.
Over there at Calfee's, they still have biscuits in the morning.
They do some of the best bacon biscuits you'll ever eat.
Well, John Paul Douglas, old friend of mine, he used to go there every morning and get that burnt coffee. Because their coffee is not, to me, it's not that good. But you drink it?
I do drink their coffee, and I eat their bacon biscuits. I like those.
Was they just two strips of bacon, or is it like
No,
loaded?
they pile the bacon on there.
They've
It's a
been
good
doing
biscuit
that for how long?
since I can remember.
Was it Clyde Calfee that used to cook? He died, what, a year or so ago?
Who? Willard.
Willard, yeah.
Yeah.
Where did I get Clyde?
Um, yeah, Willard Calfee.
So,
He
but
started that.
is his daughter working there? Or?
I think all of his family works there. His sons and a daughter. I know Leroy does a lot of the breakfast. His grandson Ben is over there. So
What time do they start cooking, reckon?
it's early. I think I don't know what time they start cooking. I think they start serving around 5 a.m.
Golly.
So they start early.
Would you say their biscuits are as good as Hardee's or something?
Yeah, I think they're.
You get one
they're
every
good.
morning?
No, but I get one as often as I get an opportunity to.
I go over there, and if it's any time of the morning, I get one just for the nostalgia of it.
Yeah.
Don't even really, because biscuits are heavy to me. But is that what they have, bacon and egg and bacon and cheese, or what?
Yeah, just any type of biscuit that you can imagine, and gravy and biscuit and that kind of thing.
They got a little
A BLT.
styrofoam trays.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Do they have? They don't have
trays.
lunch, do they?
I don't think so. I don't think. If I'm there, I'm usually there in the mornings.
I think I'm gonna go there in the morning and see if I can get a. Is their gas pretty reasonable?
Yeah, gas is high everywhere, but yeah, theirs is reasonable.
$3.50 or $3.40,
whatever
who cares,
it is.
right?
Yeah. We just try not to look at it and just do the best we can with it.
So when you route these people, you can sit down with a route during the day, and that just all goes to pieces by 9:30, right?
Usually it does, because there'll be somebody not at home or somebody doesn't answer the phone or something, and you got to move on and you got to try to get back there later that day, and that's just it's life. It's the way things are. But
years ago they used to have people they sold stuff. I'm sure you're familiar. They sold white goods, and that was appliances. I mean, the white goods was appliances, stoves, refrigerators, dishes. I guess because they were white, and that was a big business for them to take old washing machines and replace the belts and all that stuff and make a good product and sell it on time to somebody, and that was probably a big business.
I'm sure.
But now you couldn't do that because these refrigerators are what, $500-$700 a piece for a good one?
Yeah, they're expensive, and then parts are expensive too. So I mean, we do some of that with some used. That's not our primary focus in business. We do some of it, but it's hard because parts and everything are so expensive. So it's hard to go back in and be able to repair something and still be able to sell it at an affordable price and make a profit. I mean,
yeah, I mean you can't. And if they want you to knock off $50 because it's got a dent on it, imagine if it was 20 years old.
Yeah.
So it's just not. It's just better off just to sell it for $10 worth of metal, I guess. And they're not even metal now.
No, well, some of it's not, but
some of it's kind of a glorified cooler.
Yeah.
It's not that heavy or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of the biggest problems. We'll be out there after lunch and about 1 o'clock, and the driver can't get there, and the people aren't there, and the door's locked, and they can't get in. They need to know a number, and they're mad because you're not there.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, that's a lot of our phone calls throughout the day, and we just do the best we can. We try to give people a definitive window of when we're going to arrive and be expecting a phone call, so that cuts down and helps, be it for delivery or service, either one.
Do you have one person that does that logistics, they call it, where they?
No, I think there's a couple other guys that are down there that are helping us, and they, everybody just kind of works together to try to get through the day and get it done.
And probably the money you'd spend on somebody coordinated, you'd be better off to have another deliverer to take care of the problem rather than just have somebody to know there is a problem.
Yeah, right. It's easy to identify the problem, but finding that solution.
Yeah.
And so we just all work hard to try to find the solution together, and like I said, just get through and make everybody happy.
Y'all open at 9 or what, 10?
Yeah, we open at 9.
You have customers that early?
We do. A lot of times I try to get there a little bit earlier than that, and a lot of times, we'll have people that get there early. Our customers that come in earlier, they're trying to get their day started before they go into work, and we stay open until 6 in the evening. We do that so for people that have to work till 4:30 or 5, they still got an opportunity to get down there and get what they need.
What about Saturdays?
We're open Saturday 9 to I think they're there till about 2:30, 3 o'clock, so we're right in there. I'm usually off on Saturday. I work through the week. My dad takes off on Wednesday. I'm at work, and then I take off on Saturday, and he's there. But you'll usually find him or myself there anytime you come in.
Do y'all have financing available, or is there a program?
Yeah, we go through a finance company there in town, Landmark Financial. So we do have finance.
Landmark.
Landmark.
I'm not familiar with them.
They're over kind of across from Target and that shopping center there.
So they can just sign up through you.
Yeah, you just come in down there. We do all the paperwork. We can enter your information in on the computer, and they approve and fund it. And
so the advantage to y'all is that you get a sale and you're being convenient.
That's it.
Are you looking forward to next year?
I am. I always look forward to a new year and new opportunities. And
You think this year is going to be the first year COVID's basically over. We're over the midterm elections.
Mm-hmm.
The economy, besides the gas, things are rolling. You got to admit,
Yeah,
things are busy.
They are.
In spite of it all, things are busy.
I'll be curious to see with inflation and things the way that it is, how long that we're able to withstand. How long that economy will keep rolling like it is. I'm not a pessimist, but at the same time, you see things or certain indicators that are saying that there may be a slowdown, but I don't know. We'll just have to see. But
either way, we got to get up in the morning and go to work.
Every day. Every day.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, sir.